Welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. Now we're going to do things a little different. We are going to provide an honest look at Ole Miss athletics for the fan, by the fan, and of the fan. That is what we do. Hell be to me. I'm just kidding. Tune in for some Ole Miss sports news. We're going to give it to you straight. Yeah, right now. The POMcast starts now. It happens now. Holy cow. Listen to me. It's starting. Well, it's going to start right about now. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to the POMcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. Of course, you can follow us at the Stephen Willis on Twitter, facebook.com/POMcast on Facebook. And, of course, you can catch us at Positively Ole Miss on YouTube. Many other things besides just the POMcast on YouTube. Go check it out, subscribe, do what you have to do. And we're also on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss, all one word. You'll be able to see it below. All the info is coming up. On audio, we've kind of been lax at putting audio up on SoundCloud. I apologize for that. We're going to get this up today as, try and get back to normal. But as we explain, February to about April is going to be a pretty rough evolution. But we're going to attempt to, do the right thing and get it in there and provide information and content for you guys. On today's show, we're going to go over the South Carolina game, the Devontae Shuler show in Columbia, in the House of Horrors known as the Colonial Life Center. Ole Miss won in large parts thanks to free throw shooting. SEC just provided a massive gift to Ole Miss basketball with rescheduling a game at the Pavilion for Wednesday night against LSU. Tier 1 opportunity for the Rebels. And we explain why basically, they brought off all the Jeff Lebby stuff. Gus Malzahn is going to take the Central Florida job as early as today. He might have it already. But I'll tell you why they brought it up, and this little circle that they've created for news and, dot connecting just is wrong all the time. And anytime you're in a coaching search, if it's early on, whatever they're trying to connect the dots, trying to find someone that makes sense for that job, the odds are they're not going to take that job. It's nearly 100% wrong rate at that point. Now, as it goes on for a couple of weeks and you start zeroing in on candidates and there's more people with actual official news to leak to people, then it becomes a little bit more accurate. But whenever they're just connecting dots, they're rarely accurate because they don't know where the starting point is and they're just guessing. They're going by associations and things like that. And that's why you heard of Jeff Lebby at UCF. And they kept pushing it along with the subscriber model clickbait that they do to keep you anxious and subscribe to their product. That's the reason they talked about Jeff Lebby at Central Florida. Now, he's a heck of a coach. This is nothing about Jeff Lebby. You just can't trust what you're hearing from the media, especially in the early parts. You don't know what the moving parts are. Basically, it's like walking into a movie 50 minutes late, not knowing the plot, and you're deaf. I mean, that's what they're doing with the coaching search now. You're guessing what it was about, but you're not having all the information, and you're at a severe disadvantage. So just be careful with that and understand why they're doing it. Just like Matt Corral going pro, they bring up Jeff Lebby. It's about making you anxious and wanting to subscribe to their product that they're rarely right on. So just be careful about that. Anyway, Ole Miss beat South Carolina 81-74 at the Colonial Life Center. They beat them in a large part due to free throw shooting. Ole Miss was 34 of 44, about 78% from the line. Turnovers, steals, all that was all fairly even. But Ole Miss winning the free throw battle, 34 makes to 22 makes, it doesn't take much to know that's 12 points. And then with the pressure that they put at the end and coming back and trying to make it a game, that describes the margin of victory. But as we told you going into it, it didn't matter if they won by 1. It didn't matter if they won by 50. Just win the game. Especially a road game, especially basketball, and especially now with LSU coming to town on Wednesday. We're going to get into that in a minute. But Devontae Shuler had himself a day. He really did. The kid went for 31 points, 7 boards, 2 steals, 4 assists. He is the POMcast player of the game in the 81-74 victory over South Carolina. If this goes away, bear with me. We're still trying to learn on it. But, if we have this bug up for a long period of time, I'm trying to make it last as long as it needs to last. So, again, Devontae Shuler on 13 of 16 from the line. I mean, nearly half of his points were at the free throw line. He was 8 of 13 shooting, 2 for 5 for 3 is 40%. I mean, he had himself a day in his last trip back home. Had himself a real day. Now, if you look at the plus minus, the biggest winner is Luis Rodriguez. And watching that game, I mean, it's not exactly a stylistic match, and I'm not saying that. But he reminds me and provides so much of what Jason Smith did back in the Rob Evans days, back in the early Rod Barnes days. Not saying anything about free throw shooting. As we know, Jason Smith had a problem at the line. But he gives defensively that little edge that Jason Smith used to do. And if you remember correctly, those teams led by Mike White and Keith Carter, 2 ADs, basically allowed them to be an elite defensive team while not really pressuring the 2 guards. So, I mean, that's how special Jason Smith was. Now, you also had, I think, Ansu Cisse. I mean, you had a lot of great players on that team. Raheem Lockhart, I think, at center. But the Jason Smith toughness, he brings that level to the rest of the team. It's kind of infectious. Luis Rodriguez is doing a heck of a job on the defensive end. And I just really like watching him play. I like watching the hustle. I like watching the breakout dunks. And it just reminds me so much of Jason Smith. Just from the jump. And the kid, I mean, he's well on his way. So, let's switch back to the main camera. So, that game, they won the game. They won at the free throw line. It didn't matter how they won it. It doesn't matter what happened. It looked like a 1997 Ole Miss basketball game, though. LSU's coming to town, and a gift from the SEC. Now, anybody that claims, period, that the SEC is against Ole Miss, if the SEC has a problem with Ole Miss, their argument is immediately gone. Because this isn't legitimately an SEC gift. This is all about a chance to build the resume. This is all about a chance to get that Tier 1 victory, to beat LSU, to get in the conversation. If Ole Miss wins the game Wednesday night, they're 3-3 in Tier 1 games. With Missouri coming up next week, with Mississippi State this weekend, there's a chance for a major run to happen. And Ole Miss needs to continue this momentum. Defensively, they're playing unbelievably well. They were a little bit lax at the end of the game last night, but I can understand that. They got up to 16, 17-point lead. And you just need to win the game. No matter what's left, you can completely control your own destiny. And the SEC reached out to help Ole Miss control its own destiny even more. If they win Wednesday, they're in the tournament at that point. All their numbers will be in the tournament. I mean, 13-8 overall. They'll be 8-6 in the SEC. They're looking like they're going to go above 500 for the year. At that point, they will be in it. They can only lose their way out of it. But if they can keep it going, they will be in it. Then Mississippi State, there's a chance to go 14-8. Now you can see how this is just jumping. Missouri Wednesday, a chance to go, 16-8 and get to that 2 out of 3 margin that we were talking about earlier in the week last week. And you do that and you get in the tournament, you have a chance to build. And next year you have, Deshaun Ruffin, I think James Clark, Grant Slatton coming into a fairly stacked team. Now you're going to lose Devontae Shuler, but they're going to remake how they play. And they're probably going to remake it more in Kermit's image. What you see right now from the Ole Miss Rebels, not necessarily the 80 points win, but the defense first team is how Kermit made it his bones going through Sun Belt and Conference USA play. That's his style. That's what he does. Now, with Deshaun Ruffin and those guys, you have a chance. And with Grant Slatton, there's a guy coming in expected to be an outside shooter. Now, Matt Morrell needs to live outside the three-point line in the offseason. And, 3 points and layups for Matthew Morrell. That's what you need to do this offseason. But against LSU in this gift, Ole Miss plays LSU on ESPNU. Tip-off is 8 o'clock Central Wednesday night. You can see it on the graphic that comes up from time to time. Now, this will be the second meeting actually in the Pavilion for the LSU Ole Miss game. And whenever they met last time, it kind of got out of hand. It was like an 18-point lead for LSU at halftime. Ole Miss won the second half, but as you can see, Austin Crowley was the leading scorer. And on their side, they had Trendon Watford, who had a 21-6, a decent line. But Austin Crowley being 10-3 and being the most impressive line of the day, that kind of tells you a little bit about what went on. Devontae Shuler finished 0 of 9. He went 0 of 6 from 3. He did make 2 free throws. He had 2 rebounds. He did have 4 assists. He didn't turn the ball over, but you can see the meltdown basically. KJ Buffin ended up with 3 points. Romello White only ended up with 4. Actually, and he did not get into foul trouble. He had 1 personal foul. Matthew McRail had 8. He actually had a decent game and was almost the leading scorer of the team. But Jarkel Joyner, 2 for 8. It was just a horrendous shooting night. And the Rebels just got themselves in so much trouble early with poor shooting that LSU was just able to run away. And by the time they kind of fixed the problem, the game was already over. So that is, the matchup from the last game in January 9th. That is, a little over a month ago. But now LSU coming in Oxford, there's a chance for Devontae Shuler. There's a chance for Jarkel Joyner. This game was in the stretch of basic poor shooting, of the things that were the enigma with this team. Whenever Kermit was still trying to find that rotation, whenever Kermit was trying to find the players and piece together a competitive team, this team was still growing, and this was one of the games that they really struggled. Devontae Shuler, like I said, there's not many games he's going to go 0 and 9 and I expect him to bounce back Wednesday night. But 8 o'clock Central Time on ESPNU, Ole Miss versus LSU. Now, we're going to take a break in just a second, but that is what we're looking at. That is how we control our own destiny. Win that game, we're basically sitting in. Right now we're in the next 4 out. So there's like 4 teams ahead of us at the moment, but a Tier 1 win would cause us to jump over several of them. So that is basically what we're looking at, and that is how we can make our bones moving forward. So we're going to take a quick break, our singular quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about Jeff Lebby staying in Oxford and why that's not necessarily a surprise. But stick around for that, and we'll be right back.
You want to answer that, don't you? I bet it's just killing you seeing the soft glow just inches away. Someone wants to tell you something or ask you something. Oh, come on, answer it already! Just so we're clear, that wasn't my fault. Next time, ignore your inner voice. Don't text and drive. A message from Florida's trusted choice independent insurance agents.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis. I just want you to stick around a little longer. We're going to get back to the podcast right after these messages.
Tonight, nearly 40,000 veterans across the country are homeless. These men and women have pledged to serve our nation, and now we must serve them. Landlords across the country have helped make significant progress in reducing veteran homelessness by making housing available, but there is more that we can do to bring our veterans home. Visit www.va.gov/homeless to see how you can get involved. And if you are a veteran and you are experiencing homelessness, please call 877-4AID-VET. Thank you.
Welcome back to the POMcast, second segment of the day. Thank you very much for joining us. In the first segment, we covered the win in South Carolina, mainly free throw dominated. The second part, we talked about the gift from the SEC, about the opportunity for another Tier 1 win for the Rebs. If the momentum can continue, this will be the biggest win of the year. And after the game, we'll put them in the tournament. Now, they can play their way out, of course, but they're in a position where they control their own destiny. And thank you to the SEC for going to bat for Ole Miss, because this game is rescheduled because it is simply an avenue to get another team in the SEC, Ole Miss, into the NCAA tournament. If they were both safely in, they would not play. Ole Miss would not play until Saturday against Mississippi State. But this is a chance to basically write your way in. They've played really well over the last 4 games. Can you get that 5th straight win? We're going to find out Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern on ESPNU. Tune in for that. All right. In other news, Gus Malzahn will take the Central Florida job. If he hasn't already today, he is expected to over the next couple of hours. What does that mean? Well, all the small circle worrying that they were trying to do about Jeff Lebby, it turns out was for naught, as it usually does. Now, there's a couple of things you need to understand about that. And this is coming from somebody that, worked at Yahoo for a decade, worked in local TV, and worked at the school. So I kind of know how these situations actually go. And what I see what they're doing. Since I know the starting point, I know what the ending points are supposed to look like, and I understand when somebody is basically conning you at the moment. But whenever a new coach, our coach is fired, let's say, I don't know, the coach at Arkansas State, Butch Jones, is fired. The media is immediately going to play the connect the dots game, and their sources are immediately going to play the connect the dots game. Somebody that you would think is very reliable because of past history in this situation is not so reliable because they are playing the connect the dots, you're playing the connect the dots, and a lot of confirmation bias is going on in the early part of this search. So probably 98 to 99% of the time, the early names that are listed do not get the job. They're dead wrong. They go somewhere else. And that is because whenever you do this, you're going off of less than half of the information. And in Central Florida's case, they were naming Jeff Lebby and all that before the athletic director for Central Florida was even hired. Because in the subscriber model, they want you to spend money. They basically a giant grift. So understand this. You need to feel anxious. You need to have anxiety. You need to be worried that you're going to lose something in order to subscribe to what they're selling. They're not really selling useful information. They're selling rumors. They're selling things like that. They're selling drama. And there's some people that just need the drama. They live in the drama. I get that. I understand that entirely. But for people that just want to follow and enjoy following Ole Miss football, it's a problem. Because if they're always worried about losing something, eventually they're going to walk away. They're going to stop doing it. They're going to shun that anxious feeling that comes from them wanting to follow their chosen sport. And you can see that in NCAA football, people are staying home. People are not going like they were because the access level has been dropped down to next to none because of the paywall. So that's what I mean by want it dead or alive free content. I don't want to put another obstacle in front of people that want to follow Ole Miss. I view this as a charitable organization, basically. I want to keep the lights on. I want to keep doing what I'm doing. But this isn't about making money. I could give a shit about money. I've kind of made my money. And, moving forward, maybe we can grow this into something pretty special and provide the access for those young people that just want to follow Ole Miss sports. They might go to a football game and get the bug, and they're going into all the sites that are out there, and they can't get what they're looking for, and then here we are at 10 o'clock in the morning Central Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So thank you very much for joining us through that. And we have been bad at uploading our podcast to the audio version. I do apologize for that, and I'm going to try and remember to get that done today. It's just a problem. I'm still working multiple jobs at this point, and it just fell between the cracks. So I apologize for that. So I want everybody to understand about coaching searches, and anytime you hear something coming from the Ole Miss media, it's such a small circle, so much confirmation bias. Just be careful. Make sure you're not being conned. Make sure you're not being played. And if you do that, and you see what's in it for them and why they're doing it, and once you understand what they're doing, you can understand the real nuts and bolts and separate, their bloviating from actual facts, because there's no reporting going on anymore. It's all opinion. And if you're not involved in the program or have a skin in the game, why would we care about your opinion? Just something to keep in mind. Why would we care about the opinion of somebody that doesn't care about the thing they're covering? Seems like, be better off with Steve Robertson covering Ole Miss. So, just be careful. Tomorrow, we're going to bring up and continue the cover of the LSU game on Wednesday night. The Jeff Levy saga is over. If you notice, we have not really covered that at all. Just because, we're not in the business of keeping you anxious. And there's nothing really to report except for dot connecting and assumptions. So that's the reason we didn't do that. Tonight or tomorrow, Darby McCraney, his first segment, I think it's going to be on defensive linemen in the 22 class. Tune in for that. Wednesday will be Chris Thrasher. And that has a chance to be really good, especially with the winter wonderland that is Oxford. It was 83 degrees yesterday here, and I went swimming and went to the beach. So, not bragging, but kind of bragging because, the whole country is cold except for me, so I'm kind of happy about that. So, trying to figure out a way to do virtual watch parties and bring in your comments to where you can participate in what's going on, and it's not just people talking at you. I'm interested in that. Our reaction shows, they're going to probably start in April-ish, May. But we'll do a live stream after the game, after every game of the Big Three. And, we might do a live stream after Coach Yo's game. We don't know. But right now, we're still in the early part of this growing, and, we're building graphics, building shows, and trying to figure out the correct look for the POMcast. So, Darby McCraney tomorrow for recruiting, little recruiting knowledge for 2022. Chris Thrasher for Kermit Davis and spring football and baseball, because baseball starts this weekend, by the way. I don't know. I'm not going to pay for any access. If that's a free thing, we might watch it. But we'll have to see. I'm not going to pay money for that. I think it's on Flow Sports or something this weekend for the Texas Rangers Classic or whatever it's called. But that's kind of the three things you need to know. The basketball team beat South Carolina. Didn't matter. You can win by 1. You can win by 50. It's still a win. And they did most of their work at the free throw line. The SEC did us a huge favor by bringing LSU into the fold and playing another game in the Pavilion. Tier 1 opportunity Wednesday night. If Ole Miss can win that game, they are safely in the tournament. At that moment, there's still time to play their way out of it, but at that moment, they'll be safely in it. And do not trust, basically, media talking about coaching searches over the year. It's all part of their business model to keep you anxious and worry about losing something, whether or not you actually have to worry about losing something. So just be careful with that. I think I'm going to give you a minute or so back today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Stephen Willis. This has been the POMcast, and I'll see you tomorrow.